I had bought a pink skirt and top from a catalog and had saved them for this outing, along with a coat. I felt wonderful, the first clothes I had bought for myself. Angela had expected to give me help, but she was pleased to see I had gotten to know a lot in the year. Her only suggestion was to pluck my eyebrows thinner, which I promised to consider. Once we were all ready, we left for town. I had been in a few of the bars and pubs now, so I felt at ease walking around. What was interesting was how Neil behaved when I was with Jill and Angela. I hadn't noticed, but I played a more feminine role when I was with them. I was copying and being encouraged, and my brothers being so masculine took on Neil as a guy. This made us respond to each other differently from before when it was two friends out for a drink. Neil felt he ought to have held my hand or something when my brothers were with their wives, and when we went to a club, we both were left as they went to dance, and we felt we should be a couple. At the time, it felt odd standing together, looking like we ought to be much closer than we were. Well, the Christmas Day meal was as much fun as usual. Jill lent me her green dress once more, and I tried to do it justice. I hope to give more appropriate gifts this year. I bought silk dressing gowns for Jill and Angela and silly ties for my brothers. In return, they gave me some surprising prosthetic enhancements and some new bras and undergarments to go with them. Angela, in particular, wanted to see how they looked, and I promised to try them later. So, after we had eaten and tidied up, as some went for a walk or fell asleep, I went upstairs to change. I tried to be alone, but Angela and Jill noticed I was missing and came to find me undressed and reading the instructions. They had adhesive pads or a type of bonding material to stick them to me, so it was a case of working out where to place them, how long I wanted them to stay on, and how to remove them. After much playing around, they were stuck in place, and I could feel their weight pulling on my chest. I quickly refastened the corset to find they were much larger than the foam shapes I had been using. They were, in fact, a size D. The argument was that they wanted to give me as good a figure as possible, and a good chest is important. They certainly filled out the dress and added to the visual effect of the narrow waist. Neil came round in the evening with a gift. He was a picture when he saw me, eyes nearly popping out. When Jill told him I had stockings on as well, it was not hard to see he was getting excited. Very nervously now, he gave me the gift. I had only given him a CD, and he gave me the sort of thing you give to a girlfriend, a matching camisole and French knickers. We both blushed, and he said it seemed like a good idea at the time, and he meant nothing by it, just fun. We invited him in and had an enjoyable evening playing with the kids' games. When we finally went to bed, I was faced with what to do with the prosthetics. Because I would be putting them back on in the morning, I felt it easier to sleep with them on. As long as I did not sleep on my face and squash them, I should be all right. So, with a nightgown now filled at the front, I went to sleep feeling the weight of the enhancements for the first time. On Boxing Day, before Phil left for Angela's parents, we went for a walk with his kids. I was even brave enough to go out as Lauren. As we ambled about the paths, he opened a new can of worms. He asked how I thought Neil looked at me, if I was attracted to men, and if he was right in thinking I was becoming more Lauren than Lawrence. I hesitated on all the questions, but they did crystallize in my mind some things I had started to think about myself. I kept myself busy the rest of the day, and when Neil called, I told him I was busy, really just avoiding him. I had another day of introspection, then the following day Jill asked me to go to the shops with her. I felt it would be fun and reckless. She was a little surprised when I was to go in a dress, but she hardly turned a hair and drove us to a shopping mall some distance away. This was a thrill. We went into shops, I looked at clothes, we had lunch, and generally, I did all the things I had hated doing with girls, but now I enjoyed it. I did not have the nerve to buy anything, but the challenge was set to do so soon. When we got back, I returned Neil's call. I felt I wanted to know how we felt about each other. He came round, and the talk got round to what I was wearing and what he thought would be nice. I boiled it down to short and sexy, fairly typical male, I thought. But on your best friend, did he really want to see me in that style? I suggested we go out for a drink later on, sent him on his way, then after dinner found the shortest skirt and tightest top, which was not hard now with a pair of enhancements on my chest, the highest heels, and boldest makeup. I would have worn stockings, but they came too low for modesty. All covered up with the coat, I was ready to test his response. I kept the coat fastened until we were in a bar. He became all protective when I opened the front, and he saw how much leg was on show. I was a little surprised at myself, but it was for his benefit, I told myself. When I took the coat off later, he leaned over and whispered, "I've never been seen with anybody so good-looking. I can't believe it. If only you were my girlfriend." I did not respond, but kept it in mind for future reference. The next day I spoke to Jill. I could think of no one else to confide in, telling her of the previous night's events and responses, and asked if she thought Neil fancied me. The reply was unexpected. How did I feel if he did fancy me? Something I had not considered was how I felt about being in a romantic relationship. I only looked at how people saw me. How did I see Neil, or any guys for that matter? Then Jill asked if I would like to go to a New Year's dance with them. I said it would be nice, then suggested I needed a partner, as she was definitely going with Bruce this time. I dithered, and she said she would ring Neil for me and ring me with the answer. 15 minutes later, she rang to say she had 2 tickets, and Neil would pick me up about 8 in the evening. I hardly had time to reflect on the implications when Mother appeared at my door. "Jill tells me you are going to a dance. I would like to treat you for being so good to me. Please come shopping with me this afternoon." I had 2 days to the party, and maybe she wanted to buy something special. My assumption was right. There is a shop my mother particularly likes to buy from, but they also have an agency, so she had rung in advance to see if they had anything suitable for her daughter. This, fortunately, forewarned the owner, who knew her well and had noticed how the family situation had changed. I was greeted with courtesy and a whispered word of understanding. "Don't worry, we've sussed out the situation and we'll keep you private." I thanked them, and we were led into a room at the back. The whole experience was thrilling. The owner kept bringing clothes, encouraging me to try them on, offering an opinion on them all, but most of all, she made me feel special. I know she was after a sale, but that did not detract from the fun. I finally picked a yellowy gold dress. It had a high neck, no sleeves, built-in bra cups, a bare back from the collar to the waist, a skirt that was tight around the hips, but long with a split up the front. We then went looking for shoes and a clutch bag. I was nervous as we entered the wide world, but my mother's confidence worked for both of us. She initially wanted to find gold, but we settled for white. All done and tired from walking about in high heels for so long, we headed home. We hung the dress up and discussed makeup and hairstyles, not something a son usually talks about with his mother. She went off to phone someone, returning saying tomorrow would be busy, but her salon could squeeze us in. This meant little at the time, but by the following evening, it would have made a dramatic change to the future. Almost as soon as I woke, I looked at the dress. I had it for a week and could not wait for New Year's Eve. After lunch, Mother drove us a few miles to her salon. They knew her well, and when she introduced me, I knew they knew the situation. Mother wanted her hair washed and styled, but she had more plans for me. My hair had not been cut for a year and just reached my shoulders. She and Sarah, the stylist, talked about me rather than with me. Mother said it was a shame my hair was short and nondescript brown. Sarah offered to change all that if we wanted. She showed color charts, then photos of models. I was taken with a pretty picture of a long bob in a very light brown. "Not thinking," Sarah said, "if you have the time, we can do that." In disbelief, I looked back. Mother just told her we had plenty of time. My head was fussed over for ages, the hair extended and recolored, then styled. And while all this was going on, a girl named Helen came to do my nails. But with having to keep my head still for such a long time, it was some time and 4 fingers into the job before I saw she was adding acrylic nails that were at least double the normal cut length. It was a bit late to object, and the pampering was nice. After hours, we emerged. My hair now fell both sides of my shoulders, brushing the top of my breasts and moving very freely. My nails were long and polished pink, becoming more obvious to me as they stopped my fingertips from touching things I expected to touch. Father was at home when we returned, with a big grin on his face. "Lauren, I hope you don't mind, I've booked seats at the theater." Mother did not wait for my answer, just told him to prepare some food because we were off to get ready. She disappeared into her bedroom and then called me to ask which dress to choose. She had 3 evening dresses. We picked a full long blue dress that swished a lot. Then she told me to go and get ready, but to leave the dress off just in case I spilled something on it. With great care, I did my face, made sure the enhancements were secure, and taped myself back. I used a panty girdle for extra concealment. When it came to the dress itself, I had to ask for assistance as the nails got in the way, the buckles on the sandals only just working for me. Father had his best suit on and complimented us both before escorting us to the car and onto the theater. The play was nothing special, and not one I would have gone to by choice, but the exhilaration of being out in such a lovely dress with gorgeous hair and feeling the warmth from my parents. We went to a small wine bar for supper after and enjoyed every minute of being so glamorous. The anticlimax was getting home and having to undress and trying to sleep after such a high, but I did eventually. Late the next morning, I was having breakfast in my nightgown, as I had become accustomed to doing, when Father appeared. He was usually gone to work, and he had never seen me dressed up before. "Last night was good, wasn't it?" I agreed. Then he continued, "You enjoyed yourself, didn't you?" Not waiting for a reply, "You seem to be less hostile to being a girl now. I guess you didn't realize how pretty you were." He paused. "I can afford to spoil you, you know. If you want, I could give you a clothes allowance and pay for the other things which you never had to think about as a boy, but now have to be considered." All I could think to say was, that would be kind, but somewhere at the back of my mind, I felt I was being maneuvered by him. I just wasn't sure if I should let him. Neil called later. He loved the hair and the nails, and my eyebrows had had a few more hairs removed. I enjoyed telling him about the theater and the new dress. The conversation moved on, and then out of the blue, he said, "You will have trouble going to the pub with those nails and long hair, you know." In all the excitement, I had forgotten the implications for the future. I acknowledged that if I went out now, I really had to do it as a girl. Then he listed the things that had changed: hair, nails, eyebrows, shaved legs and arms. He missed one thing: breasts. He didn't understand, so I undid my blouse. His eyes were starting to stare, then when I undid the bra, I could almost see his trousers move. "See, they are fixed. It takes a few days to come off easily." He wasn't really listening to me. "Do you wear underwear as well?" I asked him if he thought anything else would do. "You just don't realize how splendid you look." I blushed. "Are you going to stay like this for good then, or just for now?" I asked him which he would prefer. He confessed that Lawrence was his best mate, but as Lauren, it was getting difficult to think of me as a friend like Lawrence. He was confused by having the image of a girl he would really fancy if she were available and real. We then circled around the subject of why he had not really had a girlfriend, and why I had split up, and onto sexuality. We were very honest with each other, but I found myself thinking as Lawrence, but behaving like Lauren. Now I was confused. We concluded nothing. There was no point at which we said, "That's how it is." Rather, we would talk as though we meant somebody else, the "I have a friend" kind of statements. After an afternoon of being honest, but not understanding anything more about each other or ourselves, we parted. Neil said he should be able to borrow his father's Mercedes, which would complement the beauty I had become. "Can't turn up in an old banger, can we?" he insisted. New Year's Eve. I was so excited. I wished Neil or I had made up our minds as to how we felt about each other, or maybe we were avoiding rejection by not actually taking the friendship into new areas. Anyway, besides wanting Neil to take the lead, I had a day of making sure I was perfect. It started in earnest in the afternoon. Mother styled my hair. It was so soothing to have my hair brushed. I was groomed and thoroughly checked. The enhancements were checked and glue packed just in case. Whilst I was swanning around in just a bra, pants, and a dressing gown, the belt became untied in front of Father, and, like a girl, I hid myself. As Lawrence, I never bothered to be modest, and as I sat down later, I considered how this role was taking over. That response had been instinctive, not considered in any way. I could not decide if that was a good thing or not. Well, after all the pampering, it was time for makeup. I took great care to get everything perfect: the eyes, the lips, the blush, then I recoat the nails. Only the dress was left, but that would wait until the last minute if I was sensible. But I was so excited I had to wear it. I removed my underwear and was looking for clean undergarments when I saw Neil's present and slipped on the French knickers. Then I stepped into the dress, fastened the collar behind my neck, rearranged my enhancements, and slipped on the shoes. I was ready. The feel of the dress against my skin, the legs in particular, was lovely, and I could feel the enhancements moving about in a most natural way. I presented myself to Mother, who approved greatly, leading me into her bedroom. "Here, this is for you." She passed me a ring. "It was your grandmother's." I looked at it. There were 2 matching wedding and engagement rings. She pushed them onto my right hand, then we admired them. "Those are to keep, but you can borrow these," and gave me a handful of gold bracelets and a gold lady's watch. I put them all on and played with the bracelets. They seemed to be constantly moving. There were so many of them. I sat and waited for at least an hour, but he was not late and arrived in the Mercedes, wearing a suit. I met him at the door to stop Mother from inviting him in. He grinned. "Your carriage awaits, Cinderella. You shall go to the ball." I smiled back. "You look smart." "Not as good as you." "You are beautiful," he replied. I kissed his cheek. "Thank you," I whispered in his ear. I picked up my coat and bag and we left. We met Jill and Bruce in the function room. They had saved us seats. Jill was lovely in the green dress I had borrowed last year. Bruce insisted. He said something about seeing this dress in a new light, Jill told me later. I asked if she had the corset and stockings on and smiled. I spent plenty of time with Jill because I wouldn't go to the toilets alone. It was at such a moment Jill asked how Neil and I were getting on. I shrugged. She said she had been watching him, and he could not take his eyes off me. I suggested she was mistaken, but I knew she wasn't. We all danced, ate, and drank until we had had enough. I danced with Neil and Bruce, but the way they held me was different. Bruce held me as a dance partner, Neil held me just that little bit closer, and I him. A few days later, Neil told me Bruce had told him he saw nothing wrong in us being together in a way that meant he had no prejudice about my new look, or us having a relationship, and that he should get on with it before someone else moves in. I could guess when this happened because he started leading me to dance by holding my hand, and the holds got closer. Around 2 o'clock, we made our excuses and left. I linked his arm, and as soon as we were out of sight, I kissed him, and I don't know how, but we made the kiss a real one with real passion, like I had never kissed before. He responded, and we held each other tight. A magical moment. As we held one another, I could feel my undergarment straining at its controlling tapes. I was used to it getting excited when I had worn certain things before or even in exciting situations, but now the tape was being well tested. I just hoped it held and did not embarrass me with an unsightly bulge. I pulled away, not sure if this should be happening. Neil took my hand and walked me to the car. He opened my door like a gentleman, then got in his side. We drove back in silence, the shock of what we had done stunning us both. As we neared home, I had to say something. "What do we do now?" I asked. His hand came across, touching mine. "Would you like to try again?" He was not answering but getting agitated. "Stop the car," I commanded. He stopped safely, then I leaned over and kissed him. Again, there was the same electric connection between us. I pulled back. "I think that answers our questions." He pulled me back to himself. "I think it does. You keep on being Lauren. That will suit me just fine." Holding each other, we relaxed. "Let's go home," he suggested. "Whose?" I asked. "There's nobody home at mine," he offered. "Let's go there then." Within minutes, we were on the drive, and we entered like teenagers trying not to let go of each other. "Do you want a drink?" "I think a big vodka if you're having one." We eventually disentangled our bodies a couple of hours later. The tape had survived, as had the dress. But Neil had a telltale damp patch on his trousers to let me know he had enjoyed himself. He then walked me home, passing several people on their way home from their parties. Nobody gave us a look, except one friend who acknowledged Neil but not me, as he had not recognized me. After a long doorstep kiss, I went to bed very excited but exhausted. About midday, Jill called round. She wanted to know what happened, and I wanted to know if the green dress was a hit. We told each other everything, then very directly asked if I was a virgin. I blushed. She guessed I was, and Neil, I didn't know for sure, but I thought not. Then she pointed out that for now, I would have to remain a girl. A boy would not have long polished nails, breasts, narrow eyebrows, or such a long haircut. Some things I could cover up, but not those, so my sneaking off times were over for now. Jill then hoped I would make the most of my new identity, buy clothes, go out, enjoy the new identity, and maybe see how Neil wants it to go. I assured her that with all the effort that had gone into making me look like this, I was not going to throw it away, at least until the new term started. It was raining, so I decided to make my first walk from home alone with the aid of an umbrella to hide behind. I would walk to Neil's, then walk back, not too far, nice and easy. There was no problem. I turned the umbrella towards anyone and was soon at the door. He was certainly pleased and surprised to see me. Though we started off as if nothing had happened the previous night, we sat with a coffee and talked until I had to come to the point. I like being Lauren, and until the end of the holiday, I shall look like this. Now, what I would like to know is, do you want to be a part of it? He looked back at me a little stunned. I'm surprised you need to ask after last night. I was hanging back so as not to come on strong and upset you. This is really all new to both of us. So we agreed to be honest with each other and free to ask questions. So started a long evening. I wanted to know if he had sexual experience, what sort of clothes he liked me in, what sort of things we could do together, or where we could go. He wanted to know how I felt, how far I would go romantically, what sort of clothes I would wear, how public I dared to go.